Hey everybody, welcome back to JuJu's Journey. My name's Angela. All of my friends, my grandchildren, my late husband called me JuJu. I'm 58, I'm a widow, and this is basically like my journey of my new life, living on my own. Today, what I want to talk about is kind of strange, I guess. It's not strange. It's just something that's got me thinking. What is time with family really worth? I had a conversation today, and that conversation is still staying in my mind. And it went something like this, and then I'll go back and I'll explain a few more things. I jotted some notes down, so if you see me reading, that's why, okay? So someone asked me a question that made me kind of stop and think, right? They asked me, if you had a choice, would you have wanted my husband, like they said, would you have wanted Mr. Sid to work shift work like he did, or would you want him to work out of state for 6 months at a time and then have the whole summer off, and then he could have the whole summer off with the family? So basically the reason that question is even there is that my son he does contract work. And so in his career, he has worked away, going from one state to another state to another state, working at different plants, fixing things. He's a welder, working shutdowns, working different projects. And before he had his child, he would be gone for 6 months at a time, and then he would come home and have pretty much the whole summer, because usually plants do not close during the summer. They don't do outages in the summertime. So they do all their major shutdowns and repairs usually during the fall and winter and spring months, I guess. But he did make a lot of money doing that. He made a good amount of money doing that, I would suppose. But he was an independent contractor, so he wasn't offered health insurance with a corporation. He wasn't offered, he didn't have a 401k with a company, retirement, stock options, all of the things. And plus, he had to travel. He didn't know where he would be. There was no stability. So my husband worked at a corporation here in our hometown, and he rotated shifts. And the way he rotated was first shift 1 week, first shift for 7 days, and then he would be off 3 days. And then he would go to second shift for 7 days, be off for 3 days, and then he would work for third shift 7 days, and he would be off 4 days, and then start back over with first, second, and third. So he would have 1 weekend off a month, but all of the other days off would fall. He might have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It would just, like, his days off would just fluctuate different days throughout the month. But it always ended up that he would have only 1 weekend off a month. But then he would have second shift, first, second, and third shift, first shift was 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Second shift was 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then third shift was 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. And he worked there for 44 years. He did make it up into management, and we did have a stretch in there that he only worked first and had weekends off for a long, long, long time. But my son has applied for the same company that my husband worked for. And it would be kind of like in the shop, because my son welds and he can fix machinery. He can do all of those trades that are needed. And there's a good opportunity that he would actually get this job. And so right now he's working in our hometown but he's still doing contract work, and it's not dependable. They could lose their contract tomorrow and he might have to hop on an airplane and go work somewhere else. So my daughter-in-law, she was the one who asked me that question, and she was talking about, wouldn't you rather Mr. Sid travel instead of having to spend all of his time working and rotating shifts? Wouldn't you have rathered him travel and be gone for 6 to 7 months so he could come home and have quality time with the family for 3 whole months? Just complete quality time. And I think her question was brought because my son was helping her. She likes to do. She goes and goes and goes, which is wonderful. Like, they have plans every weekend. But they were taking tables and chairs to someone that's going to have a birthday party. And they were dropping those off at a friend's house. And my son told her that if he got this job, rotating shifts, he will rotate, but not like my husband had to, that he probably would spend most of his time resting or at work, because his dad, works so many hours, 7 days a week, 3 different shifts. And so, they wouldn't be able to do all the things that they're doing now. But I think he was kind of more agitated that he was having to spend his Saturday doing this task. And so he was trying to let her know that, because I think they have 2 kids' birthday parties today and 1 tomorrow, and then they're dropping off tables. I think he was basically telling her that when I go to this new job, if I get it, that I won't be able to do all these things that you want me to do on the weekends. And so they were probably having a little bit of a discussion or an argument. And so that's where this conversation came up. But it really did make me think. But when she asked me that, I said, you mean, so you're asking me if I would rather Sid, my husband, be gone for 7 months and work so he could spend 3 solid months home with us 24 hours a day, quality time. And she said yes, because my son had told her that I wish my daddy didn't have to work so much when we were little, so I could have spent more time with him. But I told her, I said, well, a child perceives things differently than adults do. I said, I said, definitely I would want my husband home every single night. I said, I cannot imagine, this is me now, and before I even get started telling you what I told her, let me just say, I don't think there's a wrong or a right answer. I really don't. I think every family out there has different needs, right? Some people choose to travel for work because it provides opportunities for their family that they wouldn't be able to have otherwise, right? And then others choose to stay home, even if it means working nights or even weekends or rotating shifts. I mean, it's your family. I'm not trying to say one way is right or wrong. But I told her, absolutely not. I would want my husband here every night. And she said, really? Like, you wouldn't rather him be off for the whole summer instead of having to work like a dog for the whole entire year and still not get much time off with the family? And I said, I just can't imagine my husband living in another state and only having a relationship with his family through the telephone or FaceTime. And I said, and then when he would get his time off there, he would be by himself without his family. I said, I couldn't imagine how lonely and depressing his life would be away from his family, you know? And then if something were to happen, he would have to get on an airplane and come get back to us. He wouldn't be able to be there like, he was supposed to be. And I said, but children, they perceive things differently. I said, my husband came home every single day. If his children were asleep for the night, he was able to open up the door and look at them and see them in their bed asleep. He would check on them. I said, if he were getting off in the morning at 7 o'clock, he would come home and take them to school. I said, on third shift, if he got up in the middle of the day, if he were already up, he would go with me to pick them up from school. And then on those days off, whether it was a Monday, Tuesday, or a Wednesday, we grilled out. We would be outside. On the week, we would do things. Nothing major, but we were doing things as a family. I said, but he was able to see his children in some way, shape, or form every single day of his life. And I said, as far as quality or quantity, I said, I know a lot of people that work and have weekends off, and they're so busy, their time together is the same. It doesn't matter if it's a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Saturday or Sunday that you have off. I said, so I don't really understand. No, I'd rather have him home. And she was shocked. She said she thought it would be better to have the whole summer so you could make quality memories and do things. But then I said, well, had you become a nurse like she had planned, I said, you would be working different hours, long stretches of time. And I said, and some of your days you would have to work weekends too, so you wouldn't have the weekend to spend with other people. I said, but you would have those days off to spend with your family. The other people, I told her, are not the priority. Like going to kids' birthday parties, the priority is your family time. And I said, but, today it's a lot different. Whenever I was raising my children, men didn't go to kids' birthday parties, like the fathers. Actually, when the kids got older, we would drop them off and then go back and pick them up. But the daddies would be at their own children's birthday parties. But if there were a party at the skating rink or something like that, I may go and stay, but my husband didn't. He would stay at home and mow grass or do something else. Fathers just didn't go to other kids' birthday parties. I don't know why, but I just said, you might be going to birthday parties by yourself without my son being with you, because that's like they all do all that stuff together, which is fine. I think it's wonderful. But then I started thinking, I know she asked my advice, and then I said, well, I hope I wasn't too overbearing, But I don't know. What do you think? I'm only basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if I were asked that question at her age, late 20s, right? I think I would have still had the same answer. But am I giving this answer now because I don't have my husband? I would give anything in the world to hear that garage door open and know that he was coming home today. Even when my kids were little and my son had a ball game, my husband, I would leave him at home asleep, and he would get up, get dressed, and go to the ball game, even if he could only watch 2 innings, you know? And then he would go to work. But if he missed a ball game because he was on second shift, he would call me from work and ask me every detail. This was before cell phones. So whenever we would get home, he would call and ask me all about all the details of the ball game. And then, he would touch base with my son the next morning if he didn't get to see him. I don't know. And, of course, there were holidays that my husband had to work. But we would, if he was on second, we'd wake up early and do Santa really early. Or wait until he got home from work. And then sometimes he'd go to work, and then I'd have to take the kids to my family's. But he still got to see his children, He got to see them. He got to help see what Santa provided, and see the smiles on their faces. So 30 minutes to me, I know my children didn't think that was impressive because Daddy was gone. I'm sure that's what they were thinking. But my husband was thinking, well, I got to see this, and now I get to go to work and pay the electric bill, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. 30 minutes a day, the 3 whole solid months off at once, but you have to go 9 whole months without seeing the person that you love by choice. I know military people do that, but they're offered in 4 to 6 years to retire. I think they do that because they don't want you to be away from your family. It's your choice. So they give you that choice, but they even know that that's not healthy, right? I can understand, honestly, I can understand different strokes for different folks, But, I don't know. I mean, none of those moments that I just described seemed extraordinary. Like, yeah, he went and saw 30 minutes of a ball game, or he was able to take him to school that took 15 minutes. Or he was able to eat lunch with us before he went and worked second shift, Or when he was on third shift, he'd get up and, eat lunch and he would stay up at the beginning of the week a good amount of time. But 2, 3, 4 hours during the middle of the day, yeah, that's 2, 3 hours in the middle of the day. I'm sure my children didn't think anything of that, They didn't know any different. So, of course, they can complain and say, my daddy, worked so many shifts. He didn't get to do a lot of stuff with us. So I'm sure they're thinking in their head, Mama took me to all these birthday parties, and Mama had to take me to the pool every day in the summertime, and Mama was with us. Well, yeah, my husband was working. But he was working so I didn't have to work. I stayed home and was able to take you to all those places. He could have had the memory of being in daycare all summer, But I just can't imagine as a wife and having a 2-year-old that I would really want my husband gone for so many months without physically having him there. And being okay with telephone calls or whatever. I don't know. She said, well, he said he wouldn't be able to help much around the house. And he's a 50-50 partner, trust me. My husband was probably more than 50% because I didn't have to leave my house to go to work. But like I told her, I said, he still kept up the yard and took out the trash and did all the little fix-it jobs, honey-do list that we needed. I mean, we still put down a sprinkler system ourselves and patios and painted and had cookouts. I mean, we did all the things. We didn't. What did we miss out on? I don't understand. I really don't understand. My husband really wasn't a vacationer, so it wasn't because he was working that he didn't go to the beach with us. It's because he didn't like staying in hotels. So I would go with my mom and we would take the kids to the beach, you know, but I didn't care. I'd much rather go and have fun with the kids. He wouldn't like going to all the amusement parks and all of that kind of stuff. It gave him too much anxiety. I took the kids to Carowinds. I took the kids to all these places because I don't have anxiety. But my husband would have been a nervous wreck. You know, he wouldn't have gone and waited in a line for an hour and a half to ride one roller coaster. He would have much rather been mowing grass, putting down a patio. So compromise, like it was fine with me. I don't know. Maybe that's what my son meant. Like he thought his dad would want to go do those things, but he wouldn't have wanted to. But those, I don't know. It was just everyday life. It was our life and it was normal. I remember one time my husband had to work, gosh, somebody was out disability-wise, like surgery. And my husband worked like 3 months without a single day off, like no time off. And he had time off and I kept my children home from school. And we had an attendance lady back then that I did not. She was just, she would be on the telephone before I would even walk into the home and say, your children were late for school. Can you give me an explanation why? My kids said that their hand would be on the doorknob to go into their classroom when the late bell would ring, or when the bell would ring. Late bell, I guess. And she would make them come back and do a tardy slip instead of letting them slip right in. And ADD, HD, whatever I have, we're not known for being on time. I mean, but they would be like 20 seconds late, you know? And she would call me before I got home to let me know that my children were tardy. And anyway, she called and said, your children are not in school today. And I said, no, they're home. I said, I kept them at home today because their dad's been working so much. We needed a family day. And he's off today. And so we're going out to the country and we're going to spend the day and go fishing. And she said, well, she was trying to explain to me that she thought, you know, well, school's important and you're not, you know, da-da-da-da-da. And couldn't it have waited until the weekend? And I said, no, my husband doesn't have weekends off. That's not how he works. And I said, but having a day with their family, and they were young, and they made good grades. I said, one day of missing school, I'm telling you, this day will be better. They'll remember this day more than what the teacher's going to teach them this day. This day is way more important than whatever they're going to get taught, because it just is. Anyway, so people don't always understand, and my daughter-in-law doesn't understand because she's never had to experience that, you know. But, you know, those moments in life were not extraordinary at the time. I mean, it was just everyday life, right? But now, after my husband's gone, I realized that all those ordinary moments are now some of my most treasured memories. Like, I can see him right now going and checking on his babies, opening up the door to look to make sure they were okay. And calling me 100 times, it seemed like 100 times, to just find out about our day while he was at work, and making sure that we got home safe, and grilling and cooking and making the kids plates, and we would have camp outs in the den and just watch movies. And one time we've had all these little things that we didn't, that may have been once a month treasures, but I mean once a month ordinary things, but now they're just like in my memory. Like I can still hear the garage door going up. I can hear him like, where are the kids? What are they doing? You know, like, and be so excited when he was off, and so excited when he was home. I mean, I just can't imagine me shipping him off voluntarily. Like saying that would be a much better life for him to go away for 7 months and me not be able to see him, and him not be able to see the kids. I just can't even imagine that life. I can't. And I'm so grateful I didn't have to. I'm so grateful. Anyway, I did realize after being asked that question, I would not trade 6 months apart for those little tiny, tiny bits of my memory. I can't even imagine. Can you imagine your spouse working away for 6 months and then coming home and him trying to live? You would say, oh, no. It doesn't go there. That's not where we put the glasses. Oh, you're doing that wrong. I'll just do it. It would almost be like he was a visitor in his own home, I would imagine. Or like he was on vacation in someone else's home. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine a person I love only having them through the phone call for half of the year. I can't even imagine birthdays or school events, holidays without them there. Like my husband would take off if we had something major to do. He would take off. He had vacation. You know, he didn't miss the kids' programs at school. He never missed their graduations. All the important milestones, he was definitely there. I just can't imagine him spending 6 months alone in another state without us. I just can't even imagine. I don't know. Maybe that's why. Maybe I can't imagine it now that he's not here. I would imagine it would feel just like I feel right now, except I wouldn't be able to. I can't talk to him now. At least I'd be able to talk to him. But I would still be by myself, right? I don't know. When you've lost someone you love, you begin to understand that tomorrow's not promised. Like the ordinary Tuesday nights, the quick hugs before work. Like I said, hearing that garage door open when they come home. Like those little things become priceless. You never get them back when they're gone. It also made me think about my son's future. Like he has an opportunity to take a permanent job with good benefits, with retirement and a 401k and a chance to come home to his family every single day. And whether he accepts that or he decides to go travel, I guess I'll support him either way. I'm sure I'll give my input and tell him you need to think long and hard, but I'll still support him. And I would tell him this, though. I'd tell him you can always make more money, and you can always buy more things, but you can never, ever, ever get back the time you didn't spend with the people you love. I mean, life taught me that little moments we often overlook are the ones we miss out on the most. You know? Actually, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Like, none of us know how much time we have with the people we love. Nobody knows that. Like, I can't even imagine if my son was traveling away and something happened to his son who's got the severe heart condition, and him not being able to see him, like, hadn't even touched him for 3 months. I think that would devastate my son for the rest of his life. Or if something, God forbid, happened to my son, and then his little boy not being able to say that he saw, oh, I haven't seen my dad in 4 months. I think that would be horrible. If you have a choice, that is, you know? I mean, I don't remember the overtime. I don't remember that. The shift schedule, I know we had one, but I remember the time off is what I remember. I just remember that he always came home and we always did things. So if I could ask you one question, if you had to choose, would you rather have your spouse home every day working shift work, or would you rather have your spouse gone for 6 months at one time with a few months off in the summer so you can make really good memories? You know? I mean, she works, but I mean, you might not work. You may have the summer off too. That might be really cool. You know? I don't know. What would you do? Tell me what you would do. There's no wrong or right answer. None. But that's what I came here to talk about today. It kind of left me baffled. But I know it's because my heart's still broken. But I would never send my husband away. Not on purpose. Now, if he signed up for the military, I know we have to sacrifice. And I know if he had no other way, and this is the only way he could provide for my family, then we would sacrifice. But if you had a choice, what would you choose? Well, we all know what I'd choose. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. It really makes my heart happy. I have 89 subscribers. I really want my next goal is 100. I'd be really excited if I looked and I had 90, because that would, you know, something about moving up to the next digit series, like in the 90s, would be better than still being stuck in the 80s. But it's climbing just a little bit. So please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave me a message. Tell me what you would choose if you had this choice. And I'm not knocking her at all. Don't ever think that. I think it was just a conversation they had. Anyway, y'all take care. God bless you. God keep you. May the Lord... Hold on, let me find it. I've got it written down somewhere. I don't see it. I don't know what I did with it. I can't believe it fell off of my, I can't believe it would have fallen off of my, whatever. I do have it written down, though. I have these everywhere. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile down on you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. And that's number 624 through 26. Y'all have a great day. God bless you. Bye.